Okay. What was it done?
Right, it's still hard to get there. We're not online.
We're just about, Chris.
Okay. Are you ready to
We're live.
start?
Yep, we're live.
All right, I'd like to call this meeting to order. If we could please stand for the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please. Peggy Bossy. Here. Paul Godwin. Here. Chris Houston. Here. Karen Helen.
Here.
This meeting is a meeting of the Deerpark Board of Education. For the purpose of conducting the school district, it is not to be considered a public meeting. Due to the COVID-19 national pandemic, community input is being suspended for this meeting. Federal grant fund public comments will be accepted via link in agenda item 13. Just to confirm, Karen Kellums, are you here? Karen, are you here?
Yes.
Okay, Dan Downey, are you here?
I'm here, thank you.
Thank you very much. I make a motion to approve tonight's meeting agenda. Second, questions or discussion? All those in favor of approving tonight's meeting agenda, please signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. District recognitions and donations.
Yes, we have one donation that I'm going to ask the board to approve during superintendent recommendations this evening, and that donation will be from Rhino's Frozen Yogurt. Rhino set up, I think, a month or so ago in the Amity's parking lot and served ice cream treats to the Deer Park community, obviously adhering to all the requirements of the state with social distancing and everything else involved. So they're donating tonight the amount of $56.77. That'll be used in the student incentive account at Amity Elementary. So when we get to superintendent recommendations, I will ask you to approve that donation. And thank you to Rhinos.
Wonderful. All right. And a motion to approve the June 2nd board minutes. So moved.
Second.
Questions or discussion? All those in favor of approving the June 2nd, 2020 minutes, please signify by stating aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. I have a motion for the June 29th minutes. So moved.
Second.
Questions or discussion? All those in favor of approving June 29th minutes, please signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. And we have one set of amended minutes, April 21st, 2020. We have a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Questions or discussion? Had a clerical error that we just needed to fix, so that's why those are on the agenda. So all those in favor of approving the amended minutes for April 21st, 2020, please signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. On to treasurer's financial report.
Yes, I have June of 2020. This is the end of the fiscal year, so this involves an overall and a comparative look at the financial report. So overall, we are at 92.3%. So that's under budget for FY21. Some of it is because of the buildings being closed for the last portion of school. Comparatively, FY19 versus FY20, you're only 3.4% higher in spending. So usually inflation, we get about 5%. So we're actually under that level as well. The year to date, you get a snapshot of what was spent where in FY20 in the general fund. Just an item of note, the advances out of the general fund was a little higher this year due to a school-wide PCR at the end of June, and the CARES fund advance. We didn't have that last year, so it was a little bit of an increase. And that's the monthly financial report for June.
We have a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second. Questions or discussion? All those in favor of approving the financial report for June 2020, please signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We have some recommendations.
Yes, my first recommendation for tonight is an authorization to invest with Star Ohio. That regular redemption is just for our overhead, payroll, outstanding checks and AP. That purchase is our advance for the real estate tax revenue. We request an advance every year at the beginning of the calendar year and in June so that we can kind of spread out the revenue that we get to help with our cash flow monthly.
Motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Questions or discussion? All those in favor of approving the authorization to invest with Star Ohio, please signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
All righty, my second recommendation tonight is, it actually includes both of these, so that's a reverse of interfund advances. The first one is just what we did to advance through the fiscal year. We're just returning that advance that we did at the end of June. And the second one is very exciting. This is the last reverse of interfund advance from the original board advance for the turf fund. So that original 115,000 is now officially paid back, which is very exciting. So the rest of that will go towards repairs and replacement of the turf.
A motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Questions or discussion? All those in favor of approving the reverse interfund advances as noted, please signify by stating aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries.
All righty, my last one for tonight is the interfund transfers. So we approve those usually 2 or 3 times a year. This is just so that we can utilize the school-wide pool program that we're part of. And that pulls the Title I, Title II, and General Fund amounts together so that we can pay for the salaries K through 6. You'll actually hear about some of that with Patty's presentation a little later. But this is just to cover the first one. It has a little bit of FY20's grant and the new FY21 grant.
Motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Questions or discussion? All those in favor of approving the interfund transfers, please signify by stating aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. On to reports of the superintendent.
Yes, I do have one report this evening, and it's a federal program report that we're required by law to share with the Board of Education in public session. So Patty Haddon's going to lead us in that conversation, and really what she's just going to talk about is give an overview of the federal funds that we received and how they were spent. So we'll turn it over to Patty, and I know Melissa may jump in at some time.
Okay,
Possibly.
so we're going to talk about federal programming and what we do with those federal funds. So Devin's going to advance a little bit here for me. So Deer Park receives federal and state funds to support a variety of services, and we use the CCIP. That's how we apply for those grants, and it's how they tell us how much money we're going to get and whether we used them in the right ways. So we applied for them. We work collaboratively. So Dr. Orso, myself, and the Treasurer Department, we all collaborate together. Dr. Orso and I completed a one needs assessment to see where the district had needs coming in the future and also from past data. And then we have monthly budget meetings to make sure we're spending those federal funds down and that we're spending them in appropriate ways. We do ongoing consultation with non-public schools. Non-public schools get funds in different categories depending on what they qualify for and how they participate. And then expense request forms are very grant specific. So if somebody from Title wants to buy something, it has to be related to the grant. So there's very specific paperwork they fill out related to that. Okay, Devin, thanks.
Hey Patty, before we move on, could you maybe scoot just a little closer so that the boom mic can pick you up a little bit better?
Sure.
Thank you.
All right. So there's one little thing that's interesting is that a grant year is different than the fiscal year of school. So our grant allocations for 2020 were from July of 2019 through August of 2020. So even though the fiscal budget for the school is a little different, we're still paying out grant money to this time. That's our total allocation of federal funds that we received. And those are all the grants that we went through. So Melissa said a little bit about school-wide pool. We're one of the few, getting more, but schools in the entire state that do school-wide pool. It's where we put all of our money kind of pooled together into one spot. And we have we can use it across all of our buildings as opposed to targeted assistance is where you rank your buildings by need and you rank your students by need. So we participate in school-wide pool. Okay, Devin, thanks. So this is a slide has a little bit of an explanation of school-wide pool. We don't want to get in the weeds too much, but that's really what it is allows schools significant flexibility to consider what students to be eligible for Title I services, and how teachers can be used, and also other supports for students who have low income status. And I'll provide these slides for you so that you can read them more in depth later, and also probably put them in a public place where the public can access them. So for school-wide pool, you can see our total allocation, which consisted of Title I, Title II, and our general funds. So you can see general funds takes up the largest chunk. So most of the money that we use comes from our general local funds, but we do get some Title I allocations, some Title II allocations, and then that goes, and then also our school-wide pool amounts comes out of those things. All right. So Title I has to do with disadvantaged or low-income students. And we get that status due to the number of students that apply for free and reduced lunch, so qualify under free and reduced status. So that's how we get our number and submit that number to the state. We're right around 40% of our students who are at free and reduced lunch.
Is that like the average around, or around neighboring schools?
If you were somewhere, it depends. It depends. If you're in Cincinnati Public, they may be at 100% title schools. They may be at 90%. But then other districts around us, it will just depend on who attends.
Yeah, Reading's similar to us. It is, I think I've shown in the past at some presentations, school districts that are similar to Deer Park, and a big piece of that is SES. And we really have been very consistently anywhere between 40 and 44% over the last 7 years that I've been here. We've hovered right at that number. And I'd say Reading's pretty close. Finneytown's a little bit higher, but it very much varies by district to district.
So our needs assessment showed our greatest need for title supports was K through 6. So we do not do title supports for 7 through 12. We use our funds often to buy leveled literacy or Orton Gillingham supplies. Part of Title I is also homeless transportation. And then we purchase some safety items to help there be a positive school climate. We do have to go into a memorandum of understanding with some non-public schools where low-income students attend. So St. Cecilia, St. Vincent Fair, St. Gertrude, and then we either enter into an agreement that district will provide services, or in St. Vincent Fair's case, we send someone from Hamilton County to provide those services. And so you can see the numbers there of how most of our funds were spent and in what category. So those are the categories that the state allows you to choose from. So at the far right, professional development, and then purchase services, we didn't have very much in those areas. Homeless is really small. We have a significant amount in supplies, but then the rest is in, what's that first one say, Devin? Right before that one. Oh, the total allocation, yeah. All right. Thanks.
How do you track those kids that are non-public?
That's a great question. So I asked them for the name of the student and the street that they live on, so we can verify that they reside within our district. And then they use the same as us, students applying for free and reduced lunch. That's how they find who qualifies. And then they provide us with who it is. We double check they reside in our district. And then the state, that's the numbers they submit to the state. And we do an ongoing consultation. Like we have to fill out a consultation guide together of how we're going to service, and that these students really do reside in our district. And so we also use our in lieu of transportation list to double check, because those are parents we would support with funds for transportation. Title II is all about effective instruction, so improving teacher quality, improving the quality of teachers and principals, and then to address challenges that teachers and recruitment and hiring, and basically we use our Title II funds for professional development. Okay, Devin, you want to push that one? Thanks. Title IV is very similar. It's a flexible program to meet unique needs of districts. We use that a great deal to make sure that our teachers are prepared to assist our students with all kinds of needs that they might have. Devin, thanks. So you can see that for all of our allocations for both Title IV and II, we used all of it for our professional coaches that Dr. Orso secures through the county that do all of our training related to best practices of instruction. Title III, we're in a consortium at Hamilton County with other districts for our Title III money. These funds are used for anything related to our English second language learners. We use it to purchase supplies and then also interpreters and things that we need to service those students. We do Rosetta Stone software. They use level literacy dictionaries. And we're, like I said, we're part of that consortium where they kind of help facilitate those funds with us and help us to keep spending them in the right ways. IDAB and early childhood IDAB is all of our special ed federal funding. We use that for students ages 3 through 21. And it's to provide education and services for students with disabilities to strengthen what we already have or to provide things that those students specifically need. Most of these funds, as you can see, are used for salary and benefits to support personnel to educate. A small percentage of our funds is used for training related to federal funding and special education services. And then we use instructional supply money to buy unique curriculum that supports our specialized classrooms. But most of our funds comes from, that's how we pay a lot of our aides, a lot of our WICSE aides, and a lot of our in-house aides. Early childhood funds supplement the funds needed for preschool psych, and then speech and language pathologists, and all that comes through Hamilton County. For 2021, we submitted our 2021 funding application to the state. We're planning to use those funds, has begun based on our one's needs assessment. And just an interesting note, now we have 2 non-public schools that are within our boundaries, and we are the fiscal agent for Oratora. So they'll be receiving some special ed IDA money, some Title I, II, IV, all of those funds. They'll be receiving some of those funds.
So does Linden Grove receive any funds from us?
Linden Grove opts out. They're scholarship providers, so they choose to use scholarship, but they do not have to use us as a fiscal agent because they're not a religiously affiliated school. But they don't take auxiliary funds, I don't believe, or any title funds, but Oratora does. So any questions, or that was kind of a quick view of what our funds look like. I don't think we have, I think the highest amount is in IDEAB. We get the most funds there. Our title number seems to sometimes be going down, but then we'll get an allocation that it goes up. So it fluctuates throughout the year. So we plan the best we can by what we know at the time.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, Patty.
Any questions? Dan, Karen, any questions?
No, I'm good.
All right. Recommendations.
Yes, thank you. My first recommendation is to approve the donation I mentioned earlier. So I recommend the acceptance of $56.77 from Rhino's Frozen Yogurt to be used at Amity Elementary towards student incentives.
So move.
Questions or discussion? All those in favor of accepting the donation of $56.77 from Rhino's Frozen Yogurt, please signify by stating aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. My next recommendation is to approve the revised policies 5200, 1422, and 3120.04.
Questions or discussion?
Yes, I'll give you a quick rundown. Policy 5200 is attendance, and it actually had to do with truancy. And the language in our policy basically stated days, and the state has transitioned from days to hours. So we had to change that language in our policy to match the hours requirement. So we changed it from days to hours. 1422 is non-discrimination, equal employment opportunity. We have 2 compliance officers. Previously, it was Patty and Dave Bergen. There's several other places in board policy that talks about compliance officers. We missed one spot. We had to change the name to Stacy Orso. So we changed Dave's name to Stacy. So that is the one revision, minor revision. And then the third policy, 3120.04, was employment of substitutes. There was some language in other board policies that I was looking at, specifically next door Madeira, They have some language that allows the board and the superintendent, with the approval of a board at a board meeting, to change substitute pay in special unique circumstances. And I like that little bit of flexibility. So I added that language to our policy for if we ever need to use it down the road. No intention of using it at this time, have no thoughts of, who it might pertain, but I did like that language in their policy. So I asked Jenny to revise that for me with Neola, and I wanted the board to approve it this evening. So those are the 3 policies.
Right, all those in favor of approving the 3 Neola policies, or however you pronounce that, sorry, I butchered that. Please signify by stating aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. My next recommendation is to approve the Applied Behavioral Services Educational Placement Agreement for Special Education Services rendered for the 2020-2021 school year.
So moved. Second.
You want to explain ABS?
Sure. ABS is, ABS is a specialized school that's located down in Oakley on Madison Road. We have one student that attends there with significant behavioral concerns. He's been there for several years. It's been a really good placement for him. So this is our contract to continue to provide services for him.
Other questions? All those in favor of approving the Applied Behavioral Services Educational Placement Agreement for Special Education Services for the 2020-2021 school year, please signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. My next recommendation is to approve the Frontline Technologies Group, LLC, Frontline Education Group, to implement school nursing management system for the July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2023 school year. And my recommendation is to approve that contract.
Questions or discussion?
Just a quick explanation. Health management documents and health management services is a new service from Frontline. We use Frontline for things like AppleTrack, which is our application system and tracking system. We use it for attendance and teacher attendance. And they came out with this health management services. Our 2 nurses, Julie Dido and Leslie Carley, were looking at this pre-COVID-19. It's something that they're very interested in. And obviously when this national pandemic hit, we became more interested in it because it helps us track any student, staff member. Contact tracing is going to be big, and it helps us trace those and document those. But it is also an overall health management document service. So that's something that I thought, especially in this time, that it was important that we invest in. So that's what it is, and I'm asking for your approval of the contract this evening.
So it's just automatically into your contract?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Any other questions? All those in favor of approving the Frontline Services Agreement to implement school nursing management system for 2020 through 2023, please signify by stating aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. My next recommendation is to adopt the HCC contract for services rendered for the 2020-2021 school year.
Questions or
Second.
discussion?
And just a quick explanation, HCC provides all kinds of services for us, from telephones to internet. Devin, what else they got for us? Progress book, yes, for a long, long time. Yep. Thanks, Devin.
Other questions? All those in favor of approving the Hamilton Claremont Cooperative contract for 2020-2021 school year, please signify by stating aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. My next recommendation is to renew the Ohio Coalition for Equity and Adequacy of School Funding for 2020-2021 school year in the amount of $620.
Questions or discussion?
And just a quick explanation there. This group represents public school districts across the state at the state level through the House and Senate in Columbus. They basically advocate on behalf of public schools, and it's funded by public schools, 50 cents a kid, and it's well worth the money because there's a lot of legislation now that we need advocates for. So,
Any other questions? All those in favor of renewing the equity and adequacy of school funding for the 2020-2021 school year, please signify by
recommendation is to approve the resolution agreement required to be kept confidential under Ohio Revised Code 3319.321. And FERPA.
Second.
Explanation, please.
Yeah, so we were in mediation with a family over some issues, and so we've come to a settlement with them, and this is to approve that agreement.
By stating aye.
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 Thank you. My next recommendation is to approve the facility usage fees for the 2020-21 school year and the 21-22 school year.
Questions or discussion?
We have not paid the facility usage fees this year. We approved those for 2 years at a time, and so that last 2-year agreement was expiring. I say agreement, it was our fees for the last 2 years. And obviously, we didn't think that this was probably a good time to increase fees, and so we've kept them the same for the next 2 years.
All those in favor of approving the facility usage fees for the 2020, 2021, and 2021, 2022 school year, please signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. My next recommendation is to approve a district cell phone stipend for district staff use for the 2020-2021 school year.
Second.
Any questions or discussion? All those in favor of approving the district cell phone stipend for district staff for 2020, 2021 school year, please signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Do I have to abstain or am I?
No, you're good.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. I do have some personnel this evening. My next recommendation is to improve employment for the 2020-2021 school year for the following people: Joseph Vetter, Christina Huster, and Paul Brunner.
So moved.
Discussion. Karen, second.
Second.
Okay, second.
Questions or discussion? All those in favor of employment for the 2020-2021 school year of Joseph Vetter, Christina Huster, and Paul Brunner, please signify by stating aye.
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 Any opposed?
Abstain.
One abstention, motion carries.
Thank you. My next recommendation is to approve the one-time stipends for the 2021 school year for Sarah Godwin and Celeste Simonson as new teacher induction leaders.
So moved. Second.
Whichever.
Questions or discussion?
We do that every year.
When is the new teacher at the end of the month? I think that's
August 29th, or July 29th.
Yeah, and just as a clarification, so that's not, so we have our new teacher orientation, but then the new teacher induction program actually takes place several times throughout the year, just to make sure that, we answer any questions our new staff have, and we're trying to make sure that they're off to a positive start and continue that, throughout the year. Don't just leave them to the wolves.
All those in favor of approving the one-time stipends for Sarah Godwin and Celeste Simonson as new teacher induction leaders, please signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Paul.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. My next recommendation is to approve the extended contract dates for the 2021 school year for Jason Sparks, Kelly Snyder, Corey Madden, Jason Spellick, and Amy McKnight.
Second.
Questions or discussion? All those in favor of approving the extended contract days for the 2020-2021 school year that you can signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. My next recommendation is to approve the contract amendment for the treasurer, effective 8/1/2020.
Any
So moved.
questions or discussion? All those in favor of approving the amendment to Melissa Harner's treasurer contract effective August 1st of 2020, please signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. My next recommendation is to approve the supplemental contracts for the 2020-2021 school year. Everyone listed below.
Read them all.
Aye.
We have a motion and a second.
Well, I was curious
Do we have
about,
a motion yet?
okay,
Hold on just a second. We have a motion and a second.
I so moved.
I can't hear what Chris is saying.
Sorry.
Karen, can you please?
Oh, do we need a motion?
Yes,
So move.
Second.
thank you. Okay, now our questions and discussion.
Okay, I was just looking at here for mentor teachers, and I'm curious why that was a mentor teacher listed twice.
Yes, she has two. Patty, do you know?
Sure,
You
we
find
have
out.
5 mentors, and sometimes we have more than that number of RESA candidates, because you're with a RESA candidate for 3 of their 4 years.
Okay,
So she has, if you have 2 candidates, then you have two jobs.
and I never really read those, I didn't.
And I apologize for you asked that question.
No, no, I just thought maybe there's some teachers, and I was like, well, wow, we have 1, 2, 5.
No, no,
Teachers,
right, those are
Thank
the
you.
folks that are in the RESA program, yeah.
And I also do want to mention, since we're in discussion, just so that the teachers that may be watching, this list, even though it's extensive, it's a little shorter than normal this time of year. In July, we typically approve as many supplementals as we know for the entire year, for winter and spring sports as well. We're just going to approve those by season this year. Obviously with the unknown with COVID-19 and everything that's going on. So we're looking at, we approved this evening, I'm asking for the approval of full year supplementals and then fall sports as well. So that's why this list is a little shorter than normal.
Any other questions or discussion? All those in favor of approving the supplemental contracts for the 2020-21 school year as listed, please signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? 2 abstentions.
Thank you.
Motion carries.
Thank you. My next recommendation is in regards to volunteers. I recommend approving the following volunteers for the 2020-2021 school year.
Questions or discussion? All those in favor of approving the volunteers for the 2020-2021 school year, please signify by stating aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. And that is the end of my personnel this evening.
All right. Now we're on to superintendent committees. Which I don't know if there's, I know we haven't been meeting, so I don't know if there's anything in any of these that we want to discuss or bring up, so.
Building and grounds, Paul or Dan, we haven't met lately. We were hoping to reconvene in late August, our second board meeting in August, but is there anything you guys want to add or questions you want to ask from building and grounds at this time?
Well, I got a couple questions. We're gonna put film for the windows building. That's done.
That's one of those things when we get to board discussion, but we can move it up to now. Stacy has a couple of safety grant updates. So Stacy, you want to kind of talk about those while we're here?
Yep, so the safety grant that we got we ended up getting 2 things. We got all those cameras for the junior, senior high school.
Can you move closer to the mic, please?
So we got 2 things through that grant. The first thing that we got were the cameras at the junior, senior high school. Those are all finished and installed and up and running, Devin, right? So that's completed. And then the other piece we got was that film that goes on the entrance to Amity. And it's a 2-phase process. So the first phase is finished and the second phase is scheduled to be finished at the end of August.
And the cameras that have been installed at the high school look great. You know, we had a lot of, what were the old cameras called? The analog cameras. And you really couldn't see anything. Our hallways, or I'm sorry, our stairwells weren't covered. Pretty much every square inch of that ground is now covered, and they're very nice cameras with high resolution. And so it's going to make Shane and Minnie's lives a lot easier.
And it's gonna make your life a lot easier.
These just indoor cameras?
Did we put any outside?
We have
Yeah.
a lot more.
Yep.
Okay,
And all of them through the grant. So thanks for your work on that.
thank you.
Good question, Paul.
You said you had a couple.
Oh, okay.
What about the rain garden? Is that,
Yes,
Oh, it's
you asked
beautiful.
about that, and invite anyone to stop up and check out the rain garden. So we worked with the Hamilton County Conservation District. They were able to secure a grant, so it wasn't any funding from our end. Initially, they wanted to put a rain garden out in front of the auditorium. We just didn't think that was a good idea at this time, especially with, a lot of events that take place there. So they wanted to put a rain garden in on the backside of the tennis courts. So I'm sure there's a lot of community members that have seen it and kind of had questions and wondered what the heck that is. Well, that is in an effort to slow down the runoff from the tennis courts. And so that's what the rain garden is about. They dug out a bunch of ground, put some gravel in, some plants in. Actually, it looks pretty cool, and hopefully will help protect the environment a little bit.
Makes the bathroom dumpsters look better.
Yeah, spruce
I mean,
the
seriously,
dumpster.
it really is something, I like it.
Yeah, one of the other things that they're working on that we talked about probably in the winter time now, that they brought to the table were transitioning the drainage caps within the retention ponds behind the turf field. They're currently working with, I think it was Kleiningers or the engineers. I think it was Kleiningers. But they're working with that company, the conservation district is working with the engineers now to make sure there wouldn't be any impact. As we talked about, we want to make sure there was no impact put to the football field. They're not concerned with any impact. I should say, Moats is not concerned with any impact to the football field or anything damaging our warranty in any way. The engineers just want to make sure that from an environmental standpoint, it works and that the flow will work. So there's still a lot of conversation going on between the engineers and the conservation district, but if they get the green light from the engineers, Moats will get the green light, and they'll be working on retrofitting those detention basins. And that's supposed to have a pretty significant environmental impact as well, at no cost to the district. So thanks to the Hamilton County Conservation Department for writing those grants and doing all the work.
Anything else going around? Dan, anything?
Nothing here, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, communications. Again, I know Karen is on communications. We did not have communications. Jake, do you have anything that you wanted to add from the communication committee standpoint? Okay. Karen, do you have any questions?
No.
Okay. Curriculum instruction, I know you did meet this evening with Dr. Orso. I'll turn it over to Mrs. Huster and Mrs. Bossy.
General questions about how things are going to be. We recognize that our administration has been working really hard to be able to put the buildings back in place so their kids can have the safety that they need to just kind of crawl, walk, run. So now we started discussing about, the curriculum classes, how this is going to look, RTI, things like that. So we just kind of gave Stacey a list of things that, we're interested in, and that she's going to kind of chat with, the principals with and come to, agreement to the shift. So what do you think?
All right, thank you. Finance Committee, I know we postponed that meeting. Mrs. Bossy, Mr. Downing, Mrs. Huster, do you have any questions, or do you want to wait until you're able to convene next meeting? Okay, thank you. Great Oaks, obviously we'll table the Great Oaks vocational report until we allow the public to enter our board meetings. OSBA liaison, Mr. Godwin or Mrs. Huster, do you have anything from OSBA standpoint?
I was going to say there is a lot out there online and different things. I think there's other things that you may want to join and listen to. OSBA is really very centered together on this reopening of schools and what's best again for the kids, the teachers. And I just see it real supportive in offering tech and ideas for people that need it. So if you don't happen to want to get on there, hopefully you can get on the website and just basically attend one more course, just so that we can sit and listen to see what was going on.
Thank you. And just also FYI, we received an email from OSBA, I think it was last week, or maybe it was maybe it was yesterday, I can't remember, but they basically stated they intend to have the OSBA Capital Conference this year in person. We all know how that, and the intentions are good, but not sure that that's going to happen. So just an FYI, what they're still thinking right now. And that was based on survey data. They had sent out a survey a while back. So that is their current intention. And then policy, we did talk about 3 policies that were revised tonight. Any other questions or things to add, Mr. Godwin or Mrs. Schuster? Okay, I will add one piece about policy. We are working on a mask policy currently. All districts will have to have a mask policy as required by law. So we are currently working on that, and I hope to bring that in front of the board at the August 4th board meeting. So just a FYI on that. And I guess while I'm talking about that, I was going to save this for board discussion, but since we're talking about policy, we had a parent email us just in regards to masks. And I guess there is there's kind of a thing out there amongst members of not of Deer Park community, but just in America, that they're trying to skirt that required mask order by wearing mesh masks and masks with holes in them. And so that concern was brought to me by a parent. And so I assured that parent through email, and I also want to talk about open session. When we require masks, the masks have to be closed cloth masks. That's going to be part of our policy. We can't have open hole masks and mesh masks. That really defeats the purpose of preventing those droplets from spreading out elsewhere. So I just wanted to assure the community and our parents that will be a part of our policy, and that mesh masks or masks with holes in them will not be appropriate mask wear for Deer Park schools.
Yes.
No, I think I'll stop with that. That is the end of the committee reports.
Thank you.
On to federal grant public comment.
I am double checking public comment and make sure there has been, the only other public comment was in regards to masks. I just addressed that. I want to double check to make sure there's no public comment in regards to federal funding.
Any further notes?
And no, there are no additional comments at this time.
Okay. On to board discussion.
Yes, I'm glad you caught that. So I had a couple things, excuse me, for board discussion. One, Stacy already covered with the safety grant report. I've talked about the mesh masks. I also wanted to bring this up just in open session. I have not given actually I sent the documents to Karen and Dan. I'm not sure if I've had a chance to see them, but we did get an email today. As you can imagine, when we released our reopening plans on Friday, we have received a lot of questions, phone calls from parents. And so we're doing our best to put all those questions that we have in a Q&A document so parents can refer to those. That document's getting rather lengthy at this time, and we have not been able to respond to every comment that came in on the question form last night, but I think we worked our way through at least half or 2/3 of them today. We'll continue working on that into tomorrow. But one email came and was addressed to the board and myself, and I believe Mr. Gurley as well, that referred to, just we're concerned about kids in pre-K, well, really K3, being required to wear masks. And how the data that they provided to us, how the virus doesn't necessarily impact or affect kids. And they were asking us to consider removing the mask policy for K-3 children. And they also cited that our survey data, which we had nearly 600 respondents, 60% of our parents at the time had said they would want to send their kids back without masks and other safety protocols. And I did email the family back, but just so you are aware of what my response was, You know, we did take that data into account, obviously, when developing our plan, but we also took into account recommendations by the Ohio Department of Health, Hamilton County Public Health Department, the mayor's office, the governor's office, and then also our teachers, you know, and I don't want to say, you know, families obviously are important. So I want to say most importantly our teachers, but our teachers have a very strong say, and we listen greatly to our teachers. And while we understand the data about kids, we also know the data about adults. And so we want to do everything we can to protect our kids, but also our staff. And I will say this, and I think Mrs. Huster, you've made this comment to me before, and I think it's spot on. Yeah, we want the data said our families want to come back 5 days a week. And that's what we want to, but we just don't want to start school 5 days a week. We want to continue school 5 days a week.
So wait, like my goals are going to be in yellow in a month. Like I'm serious.
The calendar.
Yeah, Halloween calendar, we're going to read it through. And I truly believe if we follow the rules, we can move out of red into yellow. So, and I also want to say I was just listening to the news before I came, and the Kentucky governor was speaking about how many kids under the age of 5 are now in the hospital. And so that, you know, we can get these numbers.
Well, you know, I will say again, we want to start school in person. You know, our families obviously want us to start school in person. We want to start school in person. We want to continue in person as long as we want to go through the entire year. And so in order to do that, we want to take as many precautions as possible. I will also say that we know and realize as educators that masks are tough for kids in general. They're going to be very tough for kids in grades K through 3. We understand that. Our teachers understand that. We will have, and I know Mr. Dreward's already had many conversations with his staff. There will have to be mask breaks for those kids, you know, especially kids under 10 years of age. We know that, and we have to do that safely. We have to make sure that the proper distancing is in place. But at the same time, we want our public, our families, our teachers to know that, you know, their safety is very important to us, and we're going to take every precaution that we can to make sure that this doesn't impact Deer Park schools, because none of us want to go to remote learning. But, you know, if cases were to break out, that is a very real possibility that we would.
And, you know, we can have to, but I think that it's much easier as time goes on. As you know, say, well, this is we can do it. Once you choose to do that and say, okay, well, you know, get the exam done. So it's hard to come back to so, or, you know, any of the things that come up like this, if we're working right now, because the kids will come back, stay back, and hopefully, as time goes on, we'll be able to let them come back.
Thank you. Anything else, Paul or Peggy, Dan, Karen, anything else on the reopening schools? I have a couple other things for board discussion, but anything on the reopening of schools that you want to comment on?
No.
Yeah, other than I did see that email this afternoon and also saw your well-written response.
We have 2 products, one from Demco and another product from sample today. We're going to order enough for all of our teachers and every staff, I should say, table at the elementary level for the early grade, so where they don't have desks, they have tables that they aren't naturally separated. We have dividers for all. We will have dividers for all of those. You know, I know some teachers are also requesting, you know, plexiglass in front of their desks, and we're going to do our best to meet all of those asks by our staff. Again, we want to do everything we can to keep them safe. You know, the plexiglass, obviously, the cost jumps significant on those. But again, we're committed to keeping our staff and our students safe. But to answer that question, Paul, Dave is on it. We have access to those, and they will definitely be here when we pull the trigger on the brand. We'll be here in time. That's been guaranteed to us. You know, one of the other things I want to mention, because a parent in a question brought it up to me through the email or through the question form. it wasn't spelled out in our plan. And I told her I was embarrassed about it because it is important, but with hand washing, you know, we will encourage hand washing at all times. We will have hand sanitizers for every classroom that's been ordered. We also know that hand washing is the best method to get rid of the germs. That is a big part of our plan, and kids and staff members will be washing their hands very frequently. We didn't spell that out directly in our plan, and maybe we should have, but that is also something that we will be stressing strongly.
Ordering more paper towels. I do have something to do with, I don't, I personally have something, but some parents were chatting about the fact that teachers are going to be wearing shields and the kids will be wearing face.
So the face shield, so teachers are required from the governor's plan, the teachers are required to wear a cloth mask. However, if it impedes their ability to teach, they can wear a face shield that extends around their face and below the chin. That is acceptable. So they are able to do that, the same with kids, okay? Kids would be able to, in place of a mask. Now, what the governor's office and what the Ohio Department of Health will say is a mask and a shield is safe. But you can use a face shield if it impacts instruction in place of a cloth mask. Question? Dan. Mr. Downey, do you have a question?
No,
Okay. One other thing I wanted to touch on now, I believe I sent it to you through email, and I'm going to ask Stacy to help us with this, is our remote learning plan. We have to approve a remote learning plan according to the Ohio Department of Education, in particular this school year. We actually had submitted blended learning plans in the past. We use blended learning in place of, you know, if for some reason we had 15 snow days and our hours were getting close, we could implement blended learning, kind of like what we did last year, but we could implement blended learning to account for those hours. This year, it is being recommended that rather than blended learning plan, we submit a remote learning plan in case we have to pivot and do instruction from home. So, Stace, do you want to touch on that remote learning plan just a little bit with the board?
Yes, so remote learning plan also covers the students that will be fully remote. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I'm usually loud enough, so. So this plan really is for our students that are choosing that plan B, so they're not going to be coming to school 5 days a week face-to-face. So basically the state is going to collect all of these. So after it gets board approved, I think at the next meeting, we submit them to the ODE and then they just post them all on their website. So they don't approve them or anything, but they will all be posted up there. So they asked us to touch on 6 different areas, so you can kind of flip through there. I did update a couple of things with the attendance piece today, so actually Peggy and Chris have the most updated versions, but I did update just a little bit on the attendance. I think that's going to be the stickiest part, is with our students that are doing the Accelerate K-5 or Apex 612, they have to log a certain number of hours per week. So elementary students or K6 have to log 27.5 hours a week, and high school is like 30 or something, 5.75 hours a day. And we have to run reports to verify how many hours they've been on. And then at the elementary level, we're also going to provide workbooks for them, and they can do independent reading, but the parents will have to submit logs to us. And then we have to take those and reconcile them and make sure they're meeting their hours and all that for attendance. So they don't meet their hours, and we start looking at the truancy and adding up hours missed and things like that. But we will have teachers assigned to these students to be reaching out to them to make sure that they're not experiencing barriers that are preventing them from meeting their hours and things like that. So we will be having constant contact with them with the hopes that we don't have to go that route, but students doing remote learning are not exempt from the hour requirement for instruction.
Besides that program, they will get all that information on how the walls and everything that they need to
Yes, we will have to go through like a rostering process. And Devin and I are doing a bunch of rostering at the beginning of August, so this will just be part of that process. Get them all rostered and then get the usernames and passwords to them.
This leads into actually another question that was a very common question from parents, because we did not add this to our initial plans that we released, but when do students have to, and parents have to choose which option they want? And so I have answered that on the FAQ, and I've answered some parents individually, but just so everybody who's watching understands and knows, we're hoping that by the end of the day tomorrow, that form will be ready with the final forms. So we created the form and sent it to Final Forms. That way it's added to Final Forms, and parents, when they're filling out all their forms, that'll be one of the forms that they can go to that individually at first, or they can just do all their forms at once. But that way we can connect specific kids to the parents. We want to make sure none of that got lost in translation. And there's also some other questions on that form other than, do you want to choose online or in school face-to-face? There's questions about lunch and breakfast and some other questions on there. But our goal is to have that into Final Forms by tomorrow, and then the deadline will be Friday, July 31st. So it'll be 9 days from tomorrow, 10 days from tomorrow. So Friday, July 31st, next Friday, is our goal to have all the parents with their child choose which option that they want. And some people might say, 9 days, that's not a lot of time to pick. I think everybody knows this is coming and has had some time to review and think and try to figure out what they want to do. But we have to get planning on our end as well, both from a funding and a class schedule. Because one of the other questions that has been asked is, when can we get our class schedules to our kids? And a lot of it is going to be dictated on how many of our kids are not coming to school in person. Because we need to know what kids are online and what kids are in person before we can really finish out those class lists and communicate with parents. So some of that is hinging upon the results of this. So I just wanted to put that out, because that was a very common question. One other thing, I know you guys might have some things for discussion as well. One other thing that I wanted to add, I guess it was it last Tuesday, our community conversation with our state legislators. We met with Senator Lewis Blessing, Bill Blessing, and State Representative Jessica Miranda. And it was our advocacy leadership team within the district. I think we had probably 12 or 13 parents, teachers, board members that were a part of this conversation with Senator Blessing and Representative Miranda. I thought the conversation went really well. I think it was a good step forward to create that authentic dialogue and that relationship with the legislators who represent us. And our goal of this committee is to have an impact on policy at the state level that can benefit public schools. And they were very receptive. They actually, they didn't just listen, but they participated in the conversation and gave us their thoughts and opinions. So it was very much appreciated. And I let Senator Blessing and Representative Miranda know that we appreciate it and thank them for attending. And hopefully we can continue that, quarterly, maybe semi-annually. But I'd like to continue that conversation, because I think that's, we talk about grassroots movement and having a voice at the local level. I think that's what last Tuesday was.
I also think that normally when you end up meeting with the state person or a friend, and lots of times they meet with the association or something like that, it becomes more of, this is the issue, and the solution to a problem. Where when we were meeting, we were talking like what we're looking forward to for the kids, such as the state report card, the funding, and that. And that we recognize that there's not a winner or loser, because there's no team on this. And they were very responsive. And I think that we learned a lot, but I think they learned a lot too, especially at the COVID. Like, I think they're so overwhelmed with things that they don't notice some of the things that are really impacting us, but they were excellent.
And the last piece with the community conversation, we've talked about this. We gave the community a little bit of a sneak peek and heads up a few weeks ago, but we sent a release today about our Deer Park community conversation on race, equity, and understanding. Next Tuesday at 6 p.m., we're going to host a Zoom community conversation. Catrice Kate from Hamilton County ESC is going to be our moderator. We have some teachers and parents in the community and possibly even a student, I'm not sure, minority student, minority parents, teachers that are going to be a part of this conversation that are just going to share their stories of what it's like to be a minority in Deer Park, to be a minority in the Cincinnati area and in the United States in the year 2020. And, we're just going to listen. And then the plan is to go into breakout rooms and our administrators are going to moderate the breakout rooms and facilitate that, but then just have authentic dialogue with each other. And, we feel like one of the best ways to move a community, move a district forward is to have authentic dialogue and discourse with each other and understand each other better. I think, some of the things that we've seen in America and in Cincinnati, in particular over the last few months, has a lot to do with us not understanding each other and where we come from and the things that we each face and understanding that we're not all the same and our experiences are different. And so, that's our goal, is to progress Deer Park and to make sure that our students and our families feel safe, feel valued, and that we all have a general understanding of each other. So that's going to be the conversation. So we asked our community to RSVP. When we receive the RSVP, we're going to send them a link to our Zoom meeting. So it won't be, we're not just shooting a link out for anybody. We want it to be part of the Deer Park community. Say that again. Yes, so we sent the release. Yeah, we sent the release out today and we'll send another reminder about it. Absolutely. So we look forward to that meeting and I think it'll be a good step forward for our district. Okay, that's all I have.
I'm good here, Peggy. Thank you. Appreciate your
Good.
comments, Jay.
Okay. Cameron, anything?
No.
Okay. Anything from you?
Well, I do have something I'd like to say. I didn't write it, but I heard it, and I think there's a lot of different things going on right now. And I just want to say the parents are making very important decisions. So when a friend says they're sending their kids back to school, say, man, I'm proud of you, because that's a hard decision, And when somebody says they're homeschooling their kids, wow, I'm proud of you too, because you're making that decision for your child, and I respect you for it. And when a friend says they're doing virtual learning, wow, I'm proud of you. It wasn't easy making that decision, and I think that's what I'd like to say to our public is it's difficult to make that decision. And we're all D2. And so we're here together in this. So whatever decision you make, it doesn't make a difference because you are still part of a Deer Park family. I thought that was important.
I have a question. If Dave Conner had a chance to talk to the design engineers about HVAC facility and whether we can go to higher efficiency filters?
Yeah, I'll actually turn that over to you because that's been a point of not contention, but conversation over the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, we actually reached out to TP Mechanical and Bob Steens, and he is sending a gentleman that has expertise in that area from TP Mechanical on Friday. So Dave and I will meet him at 9 o'clock in the morning at the junior senior high school. We'll look at the Mitsubishi split units that we put in. They do have a filter. It's not a HEPA filter like they have on aircrafts. And we are also exploring the possibility of obtaining a HEPA filter, which is known to kill viruses and bacteria. So we'll be extensively looking into both of those on Friday in person.
It's also the option of what
I didn't mention that, and that is also something that we're looking at on Friday.
Well, that's a good question. We actually had a community member submit that question to me through email, and I responded to that community member. And essentially, he asked about our units. We do have a mix of units that recirculate air, but also the classrooms that don't have window openings, they have fresh air that is pumped in. But as Jim said, we're looking at HEPA filters. We're looking at a possible UV to kill those viruses, germs, and bacteria. We are on that, and so we're looking at every avenue to be able to protect our kids and our staff the best way we can.
One other thing, what kind of resources do we have available, or can we get in place to respond to mental health or emotional support for the teachers in this?
So just to repeat that so everybody hears, Mr. Godwin asked, what kind of resources are we able to pull in to support kids with mental health issues? And teachers and staff as well. I will turn that over to Patty and Stacy. I know Stacy, you probably work primarily with that. Thoughts on that?
Our work with the children's home is on site at all buildings. And then we also, through our insurance program, have an employee assistance program that they can access. And I'm pretty sure you don't have to take our insurance to access it, but we can look at that and make sure that that's available.
And we did send out a survey earlier in the summer to parents. It's that same survey that we sent out asking them how they were feeling about coming back, sending the kids versus virtual. And in that survey, we asked them about food and mental health. And we asked them to let us know they could write, we're doing fine, or we're struggling, but we've got the resources we need, and then I need additional help. And then all the ones that clicked additional help for food and or mental health, we had reached out to all of them at this point. Patty kind of took the lead on the food, and the building principals took the lead on the mental health component of it. So as far as the students go, I feel like we're fairly well covered. And then I know once we're back that the counselors will jump on that very quickly as well.
And Paul, that's a great question about staff. And Patty, I'm glad you brought that up. But, in our last GCIC meeting, they stressed the EAT program. And I think that's something that probably we should send out again to our staff, but it is an employee assistance program, and it is free of charge to employees that are part of the GCIC, which are all Deer Park employees. So that's a great point to make, and I think we should get that shared out with our staff. Any other thoughts or comments or questions, Mr. Godwin?
I have all sorts of thoughts and questions. One question I have is I noticed that we have the upper grades at Amity, meaning that that's we've got some classes there that are actually switching classrooms. In theory, means that they're cleaning at least twice a day. What happens to the kindergarten through 1 or 2? Who's cleaning those?
Josh, any thoughts on that? I know you probably had some conversations about it.
They're not, one thing to think about is that we don't have a target that those kids, we want them to sit in their seats, but they're moving around, but we're going to keep them in their seat that they're at. So we're not bringing someone hopefully into their seat. It might be, I talked to some of our kindergarten teachers, they talk about kids in the past, I used to like things out even before all of this. Not that it's the preference, but trying to be creative with how we do that over the course of the day. Our youngest, our kindergarten, have aides in the classroom that can kind of help us with that. We don't have that schedule developed quite yet in terms of the details of how often, but it is one thing that we're trying to keep in mind with our low guys and how we disinfect regularly. We're being mindful of the space of the staff. Trying to do the best we can with little kids. So
how many kindergartens do we have?
I think they pulled numbers today, and we're working. I think we've got 65 through the system. We have some that are hanging out there that don't have all the pieces in. And Betty Hollander really helped us out to reach out to those parents and say, hey, look, we need a few more things from you. And so that number is going to come up a little bit.
It was about 81 the last week, with those 65 there for sure, and then another 15 or 16 that are hanging out there in the system that just don't have all the paperwork in. So we're
because I'm sure this pattern was kindergarten all had aides.
We we do have additional aides that help with our kindergarten. Yeah, not for every single class, but we do have some additional.
I also say that Dave Conover met with his entire custodial staff today to begin that conversation of what the cleaning schedule is going to look like, because we'll have to implement a pretty rigorous cleaning schedule that our custodians will have to be a part of as well. And, you know, Dave and I have talked, and Dave said, you know, Jay, it would kind of rob Peter to pay Paul on some things. Some of these things might not get done as frequently as they have in the past because we're trying to do this a little more often. And I said, Dave, that's okay, because our number one goal is to make sure that our kids, our staff are safe. And if a garbage gets pulled every 2 days instead of, or once a day instead of twice a day or whatever it might be, those things are going to have to happen. We understand that. So they know the priority is to make sure things are cleaned and sanitized throughout the day. And so they're working on creating that schedule, both the junior high and the elementary school, to make sure that happens.
The other thing, just to kind of talk, our younger grade, really all of our grades are aware, and you brought it up earlier, Mr. Phillips, about washing your hands and building that routine and just being aware that the academics are very important, but we've got to build time into our day to wash our hands when we get into the building. After we've done those activities, we're re-washing our hands to cut down on that spread. So some of it is cleaning desks, but it's also cleaning hands that will be helpful to our staff and students.
Especially with lunch in the classroom and that. No, there'll be, I saw some creative beats on that, how the kids going up in the floor and they get the sport, they wash their hands to get back in line and they rinse them off,
Yep.
I just, need lots of paper towels, and we're hearing a lot of kids to me, happy birthday, but that's wash your hands.
Something else that I've talked about through the release of our plans, and I think I've made pretty clear, plans can change. This is not business as usual. This is obviously business a little differently than it's ever been done before. And so when we talk about lunches at the elementary school and lunches in the classroom, lunch options may change slightly. There may not be as many options. We might be looking at to-go, grab and go lunches, and there might be not. I met with Mary Lynn Bierman, our cafeteria food service director, the other day, I think yesterday. And, we could still serve things that are hot items such as hamburgers and cheeseburgers or chicken sandwiches that are wrapped up and just be grab and go. But, for a second grader to tote tomato soup across the building to their classroom, that's not going to work out real well.
Or they're going to go fix their feet up.
We haven't lined out those details yet. Yeah. So they're actually looking at possibly some kind of delivery system, delivering to the classrooms. So, we're still working on some of those logistic pieces. But again, my point is, it's not going to be the same as it's always been. And so there will be some things that are a little different. And again, I asked parents and students for their flexibility because we're going to do the best we can and offer as many things as we can, but it will look a little differently.
Well, I know we as a board want to say thank you to all of you for all of your hard work and going through all of these changes and plan one thing and then another thing comes up and then another thing and answering all the questions and staying on top of everything.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Karen or Dan, have any final thoughts, comments?
Thank you,
No.
guys.
Yeah, thanks a lot for everything.
Okay. Anything else?
When do we meet next time?
August 4th. Typically, Chris, I'm glad you asked that. It's something I want to talk about. Typically, our first board meeting of the month is a board work session, board development session. Next board meeting will probably look more like a regular board meeting. There's some things that we've got to approve, some things we have to do just where we're at with the COVID pandemic. We have been having those first board meetings, I believe, at 4:30 or 4 o'clock. 4:30. Are you guys okay with continuing, say 4 o'clock or 4:30?
I think it was 4:30, Jay.
It was 4:30, but 4 o'clock's kind of pushing it with
Are
work.
you okay with continuing 4:30?
4:30, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm good with that. August 4th, 4:30.
4:30.
Everybody's still good with continuing 4:30, and we'll try to meet in person again. And then August the 18th will be a regular Board of Education meeting. We'll plan on meeting at 6:30, going back to 6:30 times for our second board meeting.
I think our teachers, we will have definitely some class. Our administrative team, because the teachers will already be back.
At that point, yes.
Yeah, so.
So yeah, so we'll plan on meeting August 4th here at 4:30.
Okay.
Okay. Did you take a picture of that first thing?
We have no need for executive session this evening, so if I could have a motion for adjournment.
So move. Second.
All those in favor of adjourning tonight's meeting, please signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you all for joining us.
Thank you.